I think that we are really good at living this life of service and serving people and serving others that we sometimes forget about ourselves and our families. And we end up giving the fire department the best and leaving our family with the rest. And unfortunately, many of us end up living this chaotic life that we don't know how to deal with. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of The First Things First, a show where we will talk about setting our priorities in the right order to help us fall in love with the job again. My name is Helton Pereira, and I'll be your host. And I am a husband, a father, and a firefighter who is now more than ever in love with his job. And I truly believe that firefighting is the best job in the world. There are not many careers where you get to run calls, cook meals, and work out with your friends. The firehouse kitchen table is a place like no other place where you get to sit around, share stories, smoke and joke with your friends, pull pranks on each other, give each other a hard time. And it's just an atmosphere where you get to run some good calls and share live with people that you work with. Not only share things that are going on the job, but also share things that are going on in your home. You spend 24 to 48 hours with these people that they end up becoming family. And that's why we use the term brotherhood, because you have people that are doing these things alongside of you and they become part of your family. And I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else other than firefighting. It truly is something that brings me joy, brings me happiness, and I truly am in love with this job. But firefighting is also a life of service. We get to serve the people in our community. We get to make a difference in people's lives. And we also get to serve the men and women that are riding the rigs alongside us. We get to lead and be led by people that are working with us. We get to mentor people that are working with us. We get to teach skills to new people, whether they're coming in as a rookie or they're coming in from a different firehouse or a different rig. It's an atmosphere of serving and giving and leading people. And it's something that I feel called to. I believe that the fire service and the fire department is something more than just a job. It truly is a calling. It's something that you feel called to and something that you want to do because you want to give. But firefighting is also a life of sacrifice. We have to give a lot. We have to give time away from family. We have to sacrifice holidays. We have to sacrifice missing birthdays and missing important dates. And it can be hard sometimes. And I believe that we have to know how to balance that life of service and a life of sacrifice. Because if we don't know how to balance that, that's how we end up falling out of love with the job. And that's where I found myself a few years ago. I think that we are really good at living this life of service and serving people and serving others that we sometimes forget about ourselves and our families. And we end up giving the fire department the best and leaving our family with the rest. And unfortunately, many of us end up living this chaotic life that we don't know how to deal with. So, as I said, I truly am in love with the fire department, with the fire service, but it wasn't always like that. There was a period in my life, in my career, where I was out of love with the job. I was done. I was ready to do something else other than work for the fire department. And I was miserable. I was unhappy. I went from being the guy who was always having fun, always excited to go on calls, to being the guy sitting at the kitchen table, complaining, arguing, not being positive, always finding faults in things that were going around the firehouse and the fire department. And I bet you that I wasn't a fun guy to be around. And I was ready to quit and ready to do something else. And luckily for me, even before coming into the fire service, I had good mentors. I had a foundation that helped me get back to a place where I could be positive again, where I could see the positive things, and where I could be in love with the job again. For me, the number one thing in my life is my faith. I am a God believing Christian who put I put God first before anything. Even before getting this job, I prayed about it. I trusted God to give me the desire of my heart and be a firefighter one day. And so I would not have this job if it wasn't for God. And so the first thing I did when I found myself in the time that I was out of love with the job was I started praying more intensely. And so I spent more time reading my Bible. I spent more time talking to men in my church about how I felt. And so I had to refocus on the things of God. And that then translated into my home. I was more aware of the time that I was spending away from my family. I was spending a lot of time at work and focusing on things of work. So I had to, again, spend more time with my family, spend more time with my kids. I had to communicate better with my wife. And family is the second thing for me. I also had to take care of myself. During that period of my life that I was out of love with a job, I had stopped working out. I had stopped taking care of myself. I wasn't sleeping well. So I had to refocus on eating well, having a exercise plan, and sleeping so I could take care of myself not only physically but also mentally and spiritually. We sometimes neglect ourselves when we're trying to take care of others and when we're trying to serve in the fire department, and that was also very important. And so when I took care of those areas in my life, I was able to be in love with the fire department again. I was able to be excited for calls. I was able to be excited to go to work. I was then happy to show up to the firehouse and train and share knowledge and teach. So it wasn't just one thing that got me to a place where one day I was in love with the job and the next day I was out of love with the job. It was the death by a thousand cuts. It was the small drops in the bucket that just got me to a place where I was unhappy. So I would say that we really need to take care of putting the right things in the right order in order for us to fall in love and stay in love with the job. And so for me, that is my faith, my family, my fitness, and then firefighting. So once I fell in love with the job again, my attitude changed, my way of acting changed, and people saw that I was being positive again. I was excited about the job. I was excited to run calls, and I was excited. So people started asking me what I was doing, what I had done, and the things that had led up to me being in the way that I was. And so I started having a lot of one-on-one conversations with people. I started sharing with them the things that I did at home, the things that I did at work, the thing that I did for workouts and meal planning and meal prepping. And so I thought, if I'm having all these one-on-one conversations with individuals, there gotta be more people that wanting to make a change in their lives. So I started sharing my recipe for my priorities, my faith, family, fitness, and firefighting, and how putting things in the right order in my life made me be more in love with the job. So that's where the first things first came about. And so I just wanted to be able to share with people, not just in my department, but also in other fire departments and throughout my area, but perhaps throughout the country as well. So I decided to start the social media page and start this podcast show to just share some of the lessons that I have learned and some of the things that I went through to hopefully get people to fall in love and stay in love with a job. So this is what the First Things First is all about. It's a place where I get to come on here and perhaps have a one-on-one conversation with you, but I also would like to bring in people to share their experiences and their triumphs and their struggles and how they were able to reset, restart, and refocus their priorities in the right order so they could also be in love with a job. And the First Things First has a mission, a vision, and a goal. And the mission is to equip men and women in the fire service to save lives, restore their family, and create a legacy. Obviously, our job is to make a difference and save people's lives. And I think we can do that by sharing our lessons, sharing our struggles, and learning from each other. As I mentioned, family is a big part of who I am. So I want to help people restore relationships in their families, be more present at home with their wives, with their husbands, with their kids. It is a huge part of what I believe in. I also want people to be able to create a legacy, not just in the fire department. We all talk about how we want to leave the fire department better than we found, but we also got to think about the legacy we're creating at home. We have a wife and kids that depend on us, and our kids look up to us. So I think it's very important for us to be able to create a legacy at home as well. And the vision of the First Things First is to help men and women not just be better firefighters, but be the firefighters that they are called to be. As I already mentioned, I believe that this job is a calling, and being a man of faith, I believe that God has a calling for our lives. And for me, I feel like I am being called to serve God and serve people, and firefighting is one of the ways that I get to serve. So I don't want to just be a better firefighter. I want to be a firefighter that God has called me to be. And lastly, the goal of the First Things First is to help you to put the right things in the right order in your life so you can fall in love and stay in love with a job. And this is what the First Things First is all about. It's just a place for us to come here, have a conversation, and share some of the things that people have gone through. And like I said, this is the best job in the world, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else. And I would hate to see anybody find themselves in a place that I found myself a few years ago. So if this is something that you're interested in, something that you like, I hope that you stay tuned, come back, share this video podcast, and you can find me on social media at The First Things First. You can also email me at thefirstthingsfirstshow@gmail.com. And I hope that you come back and get ready to have some conversations about how to put the right things in the right order and fall in love with the job again. Thank you for listening in. Until next time, I'll see you then.